Good afternoon. I'm Paul Marienthal. I'm Dean for Social Action and Director of the Trustee Leader Scholar Program. I've been working with the BPI since its beginning. It started as a project in my program years ago. I was struck by a couple of things that Daniel said. I'm going to start there. One is, what is the work of the college? This is complex business. You just jumped from a high school world where perhaps being good was a little clearer, being involved in the world maybe was a little clearer. At this level, the world gets really messy. And I think you heard Daniel say it many times. And so the answer I heard Daniel say, and I will reiterate this, the difference between navigating and resolving. I think it is the job of this college, the job of you, to learn how to navigate with information in an informed way, sensitively, humanely, thoughtfully. It does not mean you come up with an easy answer. There are not easy answers to a lot of this stuff. The world is messy, complicated business. I run an office, the Trustee Leader Scholar Program. In this program, students start, run, and accomplish projects of their own interest. This is no bull. The Prison Initiative started as a project in this program. But you will never hear me say, and it is not written in my literature, and if you come up and get some of this, we don't do service. We don't do service. I do not run a community service office. Most of the schools in the world do community service. And community service plays into this very complicated set of questions that Daniel said at the beginning, what our relationships are. We don't do service, and I don't believe in service because that presupposes we're the good guys. We're out there dispensing. It's a very uncomplicated and very problematic way to enter the world. So I'm going to ask you right now, I'm going to tell you, you have the opportunity, and I can list projects that BARD students have done, and they are extraordinary. Starting with the BPI. We sent more students to New Orleans after Katrina than any other small school in the country, by far. By far, by far. We sent almost 1,000 students over the course of 3 years. The student who started that program, Stephen Tremaine, now runs an early college program in New Orleans, and there are 2 students. I don't know, are either of them here? Great. Congratulations. Who went to Stephen's early college program in New Orleans. Same thing as the BPI, serious college. Do real college in the afternoons in New Orleans. The school that we gutted, that the BARD students gutted in New Orleans, is now reopened. Stephen is now on the board of trustees of that school. BARD students do serious work in the world. There are 20 BARD students right now in the West Bank. I've been running around for the last few days, Western Union and humongous sums of money. The banking internationally is incredible. The barriers to sending money around internationally is extraordinary at the moment. A little bit like a prison. You know, I think about prisons. You know, what is a prison? You know, we could talk about that forever. Prisons of our own making, appropriate rule prisons. How many rules do we all follow that actually act as prisons for us? So this is complicated business. So I'm not going to stand here and say, come up to my office and join up in a sweet project that you can then go and do feel good. Same thing Daniel said, I appreciate that very much. The college, I think many of us at the college are deeply involved in the question of what do we do, why do we do it, is it good? We do not assume that what we do is good. I do not assume that everything my students go out into the world, just because they're out in the world doing it, is good. That requires reflection. That's what you're learning to do now. And this program, the L&T program, and the Writing and Thinking program is at the heart of a lot of things we do. Stephen does it in New Orleans. The students in the West Bank are doing it right now. The question of how you think about these things, the kinds of choices you make, the depth at which you are willing to dive into this question and live in a sea of unresolved complication is what this is about. So, if you are a person who is fraught, compelled, thoughtful about some aspect of the world, whether it's arts, education, prison, farming. Farming is an interesting one. I started the community garden 15 years ago, and I'm integral to, I'm the supervisor of the farm. I am not the farmer, John Paul Sleeve is the farmer. But the question of food and ethics, who has it, who access, who doesn't, what does it do to the environment, who gets to eat it, these are complicated questions. Whether we bring it locally, whether we ship it, who uses it, who doesn't. Access questions. I also grow a garden at the prison, in one of the BPI prisons, talking about complicated issues with the soil, questions of freedom. It's very complicated. If this is a prison, this is a garden that's surrounded by four-story brick walls. I've never grown a garden that's anything like it. From a restrictive and rural standpoint, and from an interesting conversation standpoint, it's the opposite of the community garden, of which there are no rules. And everything in the garden at Woodburn has rules. Everywhere we move, everywhere I go is regulated. These are complicated questions. They're not easy to resolve. So what I want to say to you is, if you are a person who wants to get involved in the world, this college encourages you. You've come to the right place. If you're an activist, which is to say you can mobilize your energy, you can think about what you want to do, you're willing to consider, critique, look at the world thoughtfully, this is a great place to be. My office is upstairs in this building. I'm easy to find. My phone number is hugely on the door. If I'm not there, I'm running around doing something. I might be at the prison. I don't know. Call me. I'm easy to get a hold of. Send me an email. Say I'm available at this hour, this hour, this hour. I want to talk. You may or may not have an idea. You just know you want to get involved. That's a good place to start. It's interesting, about every 3 or 4 years, I'm going to put this out to this group in this class, about every 3 or 4 years, a really big project appears. The BPI was one of them, the New Orleans project was one, the Palestinian project. By the way, the students in that project, the Palestinian project, convinced Red Hook to become a sister city with Massa, a small village in the West Bank. You live in a town that is formally in a sister city relationship with a village in the occupied territories. And the mayor of Massa, that village, is coming here in September, and I'll let you all know when he speaks. He's a very nice person. We'll have a big conversation. Questions about prison. It could be argued that the entire Palestinian Authority is a prison. And we could talk about that. It's an interesting conversation. Yes and no, it's complicated. If you want to do something, if you want to get involved, and as I say, about every 3 or 4 years a big one comes up, the student who started the Palestinian project graduated. It's time for the next big project. I'm not sure what it is. I need one of you to come and say it's this, or this. What's the next big project? And just know, none of us are going to say, wow, we've saved the world. What we have done is gotten deeply into it in a complicated way. Every one of the students in my program does a year-long reflective process called meaning making, in which very thoughtfully I ask students, not unlike what you're doing now, to really consider and pull apart where they are, what it's like there, and why they do what they do. Because ultimately, we want you to go out into the world really reflective and thoughtful, with the capacity to consider why you do what you do. I'm happy to take any questions about the TLS program. Anybody have one? Yeah.
So how does the process start? Say that you don't necessarily have a concrete idea, but want to get involved as soon as possible.
So the question is how to get involved. Come to my door. Walk through the door and say, I would like to get involved. Very simple, straightforward. It's not a bit complicated. We don't struggle over admissions. It's much harder for them. Lots more at stake. For us, we will help any student who comes through our door take your project as far as you can take it. And if that means joining a project, you should come up and take a look. There are about 35 projects right now. Some of them are quite local, some of them are international. There are students in Nepal right now helping to build a community that was designed to support leper colony in Nepal. They've been doing that for the last 4 years, and the student started that as a Watson Fellowship. She'll spend this entire year going around the world examining leper clinics. She'll eventually eradicate leprosy in the world.
Wait, so where do we find this? Where's it all?
Second floor of this building, middle of the hall, the trustee leader scholar office. There's a sandwich board right in the middle of the hall. If you walk down the right side of the hall, you'll run into it. I'm easy to find. I also live on campus, so I'm really close by. Any other questions? I have some information here with my office number. If you want to take a brochure, come on up and get one which describes what the projects are. And I urge you all to come and do this. Thanks.